Good morning. We have Penn State football to talk about. This is a good dry run for the fall when we're going to have a bunch of post-game shows. Don't know when those will be, though, because as Penn State football schedule unfolds for the first year under Matt Campbell, we're also going through that metamorphosis as well. Here in the chat, Bizzle says those notifications work. See everyone at 10. Yes, the best way to know when we go live is to subscribe to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel and enable notifications because we are bouncing all over the place. And Eagle Brad said, finally made a live show. I don't know what time they are anymore. Now that we're into the summer, spring football is over. We're back to 10 a.m. In the fall, we will be going to 2 when they start practicing again and we have access to practice. So that's how it's going to work. It's just going to be all over the place. It's a shit show, but we're going to make sure that you get on time notifications if you subscribe here to the YouTube channel. That's the best I can do. And we're going to make sure that we are, giving you the best possible content and context whenever we are live. And we'll let you know when that is. Fitz, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. We're going to the swear jar early today. But when it comes to timing and stuff like that, that's always acceptable, I think. Glad to be here. Coming off Blue White weekend, got a lot going on in terms of recruiting. Got a lot going on, more so in team stuff. I'm on a limited ship today, and I'll be out probably after the first couple of segments. But we got a bunch to talk about.
That's why we started early. Nate is I should say we started on time. Nate is coming in a minute. And we have something, we need to value Fitz's time here on the show because early in the hours of the blue-white day, Ryan Robbins committed to the Nittany Lions about an hour before the practice. He is a 3-star offensive tackle from the Pittsburgh area. Ryan and I broke that down yesterday here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. You can go get that information. Just generally, to kick things off, he is a 3-star offensive tackle, 59th overall by both the industry ranking and by Rivals. These are kind of the composite rankings of when you fall to a certain area. Then it kind of sorts itself. But generally, 20th overall player in the state of Pennsylvania, does not have a ranking by ESPN. Ryan and I both thought better than that recruiting ranking, which is kind of a theme with this class. I'm still working through kind of like where he fits into the spectrum of offensive tackle commits in Penn State recent history. But Fitz, you're here. We want to get your thoughts on him as well. So what do you think of Ryan Robbins?
Yeah, it's the guy that I like. I saw him at camp last summer, and I was like, okay, well, they're going to offer this kid at some point. I thought it might be a little bit sooner, but they wanted to see some tape. And of course, everything else happened after that. And he really blew up after his junior year. Had a good year, fought through a bit of an injury, but I think also impressed on the basketball court. And that's going to be something that you take a look at. The evaluations for these big guys that can move, and basketball is a big harbinger of success, I feel, at least. 15.5 points a game, 12 rebounds a game, WPIAL 5A player of the year by the Trib. So there's a lot to like there. Of course, I'll call him the runt. His brother's 6'10" and plays at Miami, Ohio, Miami University. I don't like Miami, Ohio anymore. So he's the little guy in that family. So good looking athlete. I can't wait to see him when he's a little bit healthier. Yeah, looks strong at the point of attack. And again, we saw him at camp last year and thought that this guy really fit in. Take a look at his recruitment. Ohio State offered. That's always a good check mark to have beside the name. Virginia Tech was the other member of his top 3. He'll learn to play a little bit lower. He'll learn to play a little bit more graceful, if you will. But I think it's a really good pickup. If you take a look at Penn State's offensive tackle board, it's one of those positions that was very thin. Like there weren't a ton of guys that you looked at there and said, this guy is a real possibility for Penn State. But to lock him down and to do it the way that he wanted to do it, this kid doesn't have an agent, which is very, very rare in these in these times. Pick the best fit for him, pick the best school for him, and that was Penn State.
It's interesting that you mentioned the injury, something that I learned about after we recorded yesterday as well. And it now that I know about that, it reminds me of the Peter Gonzalez situation where it's like, this guy looks like a great athlete, but there's just something I can't really place going on, where sometimes he looks herky-jerky and clunky in space. Sometimes he looks explosive. Sometimes there was just this inconsistency in athleticism. And, a lot of these things we try to give, this is a great example of, that is not how he looks in other games. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, the highlights, where there's just this inconsistency of where he plays off the snap and where he plays sometimes in space. And so that is, I think there's more to learn when he gets more tape, when he's healthy, of what he is as an athlete. And so that is kind of a caveat in this conversation. And I appreciate that being, brought up and part of the conversation. This is what I showed on the video, and I want to show you this to you, Fitz. This is a cell phone video, a photo I took of him last camp. This is what a caricature of an offensive lineman looks like. This is like if you were to draw what a kid thinks an offensive lineman looks like. It's like a brick person with arms that go out about 8 feet, and that's what you get when you get Ryan Robbins, who's just got a huge frame and a lot of development to do.
Yeah, strong mad for those who are familiar with that old cartoon. You're looking at a guy, and I think like herky jerky is fine. Like he was at camp last year, just a little bit stiff, but you're 6'7" and you're learning to grow into your body, and I think that's certainly a valid criticism. But I think the athleticism, again, the basketball goes a long way for me. His mom, a great basketball player at Virginia Tech. His father played football at Pitt, so really good genes there. His sister played, I believe, at Marist, and again, his brother was at Miami, Ohio. So really athletic family, and able to translate that to the football field. So I'm excited about Ryan Robbins as a guy that popped up after his junior year. I was like, okay, well, it's time now. And after seeing him at camp last year, I'm not surprised that he's at this level. Again, Ohio State offered him, recruited him. I don't know that he was quite at the top of the board for the Buckeyes. They've got a lot of offensive linemen in their class, and they just added David Seaman from Columbus, the Columbus area, Penn State target as well. So I'm not sure that the timing really fit up with Ohio State, but they certainly did like him quite a bit. So with the offensive tackle board being what it was, I think this is a really, really key pickup for Penn State.
Yeah. So I guess where does it go from here now that this is the third player in the class of 2027 on the offensive line? I'm assuming they want 5 given the size of the class. So that presumably leaves room for another tackle and maybe a swing guy. How do you view what's going on with kind of the overall situation? And before you answer that, I know the answer is probably bluewhiteillustrated.com. So the full answer probably over on the message board in the recruiting tab, as well as in the thread as well. You missed our great deal for the spring, but you can join us for just $1 right now. But generally, Fitz, what do you see about where we're going when it comes to the recruiting situation along the offensive line?
Yeah, 5 makes sense. They brought in 2 last year. Of course, 2 guys that came over that were Iowa State commits. So I think the numbers kind of were down a bit. So there's room to grow that room. Although they did bring in 3 redshirt freshmen, they kept 2 redshirt freshmen in Malachi Goodman and Owen Alasini. So like that room is actually built okay from an eligibility standpoint. You take a look at some of the positions, and they're a bit imbalanced, but I don't think the offensive line is as bad as it could be. So I think that they've done a really good job with that. But there's familiar names out there. Leighton Von Brandt's still out there, the former commit from Delaware. But beyond that, it's tough to look at this tackle board and feel wonderful about where they stand. A lot of the guys that they're going after probably in the interior swing mold. Carter Jones is the guy that kind of jumps out at me right now. He took an official visit last month. We talked about him quite a bit, and I think Penn State making a real push right now. Clemson's in there, Tennessee's in there. I think he goes to Tennessee this weekend, just put out the top 4 this week. So, but Penn State are right in the thick of things for Carter Jones. I think he fits in that swing category, probably 6'4.5", long enough if you need to play tackle. But I think that's a guy that you turn to as a potential target there. And I think they'll continue to evaluate, look at guys in camp, and maybe try and find a spot for that 5th guy. A little surprised they haven't gone harder after Ian Walker from New Jersey. That's a guy that I like a lot. That has a comparable offer list. I think Florida's in there, although Florida with Phil Trautwein starting to stack up their positions, and we'll see where they stand coming out of it. So I think there's more movement to come in the offensive line room, but a pretty good start. I mean, you got one guy, Owen Riley, is going to be an interior guy. John Sassek's probably going to be an interior guy, swing if necessary, and then Ryan Robbins is a tackle. So I think a good start in that offensive line room. They've got athleticism, they got some edge to them, which obviously you like to see. So I think they'll be all right. Ryan Clanton doing a good job.
And of course, yesterday, Ryan put in an RPM for a Penn State football player to join the class of 2027. Go to bluewhiteillustrated.com for that. We don't have time to talk about it right now, but we will be, I'm assuming, getting to that later in the week because we got a recruiting show on Thursday. So all kinds of good stuff lined up for this week. But we want to make sure we get you to blue-white practice because we got to see it on Saturday. I almost said Thursday because I was thinking about the recruiting show still. We got to see practice on Thursday in the rain. I enjoyed it thoroughly, despite the fact that I did not enjoy the environment thoroughly because I was sitting outside with my wife. We have a tradition of I sit with her for the game because it's like the one time when there's any sort of football going on where we watch football together. And it was as bad as it seemed, guys, sitting outside. But I thought it was a fruitful endeavor to learn stuff from practice. Joining us right now is Nate Bauer from BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Where else would he be from? Nate, welcome to the show. What were your general observations to kick us off about what happened on Saturday with the practice format?
I mean, I think it starts with your wife's decision making. Why?
Well, we're a little late for that.
Yeah, it's about 10 years too late, but whatever.
First you, and then sitting in the rain for 2 hours. I mean,
she's hardcore, man. She's hardcore. Like I'm proud to be married to a woman who takes football as seriously as I do. Let me just say that.
Okay. All right.
As a fan.
That's different from my situation. I can say that pretty resolutely. Yeah. It was fine. Look, Rocco Beck's alive. He has risen. I think that's important. Yeah, no, I know Fitz.
Your father would not. Never.
No. But no, look, Connor Berry is fine. And I think that's a good thing for Penn State to look. Everybody's going to have Taquan Roberson in their heads for, honestly, anybody who lived through it, right? It's everyone will remember where they were when Taquan Roberson had to go into a game for Penn State football. If it gets to Connor Berry, I think they'll be in a better place than they were with Taquan Roberson. But you got to have Rocco back, right? That's the that's the deal here, right? That he is clearly at a place that one is ahead of schedule from where Matt Campbell and his staff expected him. But like you saw it for your own eyes on Saturday, right? Here's a guy who is coming back from, he was taped together last year, right? Just playing through a bunch of stuff. And so to have him out there and participating and looking the way that he did, it's a good sign for Penn State's future this season.
Fitz, you wrote yesterday kind of a overall spring practice kind of stock up vibe situation. Who was on the rise? What did you take from the game, though? Who stood out to you among the players that you were observing during the practice?
Yeah, I like what Penn State was doing with his running backs. I know that's a conversation that we've had quite a bit here, but I still think that it'll be a step back from last year. I just don't think there's any way around. Two guys got drafted this weekend, right? Pretty good players. But I'm looking at what they're trying to do. I think Carson Hansen is going to be a big part of what they try to do. He's the guy that they called to break him down after the practice. And I think that says something. We talk about Rocco Beck being an extension of the coaching staff. I think Carson Hansen's in that mix as well. So he's got to be one of those guys that they lean on quite a bit. Although I thought James Peoples looked really good. Like I think that his vision and his explosive nature gives you a little bit more in the big run game. Is Penn State built for that right now? We saw kind of a shell of what they're expected to be, so it's hard to say, especially without those tight ends in there. I was encouraged by that. I was encouraged by the running backs. The receivers, I'm still kind of on the fence about. We didn't see the full complement of what we're going to see in the fall. Chase Soul and Brett Elska. Man, this one is going to get me. It's not even that difficult anymore. I sat there this morning and said it like 5 times in a row.
Yeah, now you got the yips for sure.
I do. Chuck Knobloch over here. You've got those guys that are probably going to start, but they're going to move around. They're going to play a lot of different personnel situations, and then that brings in Koby Howard, that brings in Zay Robinson, Karan Brookins, who I kind of expect a little bit more from over the weekend. But those guys are
pretty
playing the same conditions there. So I'm still waiting around to see what that offensive looks like in the fall. If it's an offense where they maybe go downfield a little bit more, they did not do that all on Saturday. I'm probably by design, probably because of necessity with the weather. But at the same time, there's still some pieces that are still to be put in place, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's one thing I wanted to kind of talk about, and I should have talked about this before the game for fans that went, because it would have been good instruction for how to view a practice. It's a building process. So you start out with warm-ups and all that thing that is about making sure people don't get hurt during practice, but then you go through the individual periods where you're working on techniques that you're going to be using in the practice later. Then you go into positional groups, and for, let's say, the offense, you're working on routes, right? But you're not just working on any routes. You're working on the routes that are part of the concepts you're going to be practicing as a team later. So when you're going through and you're working on out routes or certain combinations of routes, and they got the quarterbacks throwing to each, two quarterbacks throwing to a side of the field, those are the plays that they're going to be using later in the practice. And to your point, Fitz, they weren't doing a lot of downfield stuff. Now, was that because of the weather, or was that because they just wanted to work on some of the intermediate passing? I'm curious about that, because we did see more of a different part of the playbook when we were at open practice the other week. I think it was like April 9th or whatever it was. So there is this, and then on the defensive side, you see kind of the concepts they're going to teach that day. So in the individual periods, you're working on pass rushing drills, you're working on the, individual fundamental things, but then, if defensive ends are dropping into coverage, maybe they're going to be working on that in that game and working on certain formations when you're working together in the inside run portion of the practice. And then again, bringing it all together in the 7-on-7 and the 11-on-11, which is, I think, what you were describing is how they were kind of working on certain things within that situation. Now, Fitz, any final thoughts? I know you got to get going. So any final thoughts you want to give us, about what you saw at practice? Any final parting shots?
Yeah. First off, watch the highlights on the Blue and Illustrated YouTube channel. They're quite good, and it gives you an idea of how hard it was raining. Like, it was like, yeah, you looked at that and you're like, man, that looks miserable. I'm not surprised not many people went out there. Number two, defensive fundamentals, I thought were really good. Like, I thought, looking at where Penn State was on the field, you expected there to be holes and gaps. I mean, there is in every coverage. There's if you find the cover two in the corner, all that kind of stuff. I thought they rotated well. I thought they found themselves in a good spot. And there were times when the quarterback would have to scramble or dump it off, and there was a defender there. And I thought that's a really good sign in terms of coaching them up. We know Danton Lynn, a stickler for the details, but also a stickler for the fundamentals. And I think that kind of showed there. On inside drill, I thought the defensive tackles better than I expected them to be. They do take up quite a bit of space. Siali Tupaki is a guy that kind of flashed a couple of times, and I'm really interested to see a guy like Armstrong Nodim continue to ascend, because I think he's one of the top performers this spring, and I think he'll continue to play a big role in what they're trying to do, as they're going to have to account for, hey, these guys are 330 pounds. They're going to be 3 down linemen. So three down players, not 3 down linemen, as we also saw multiple fronts, multiple attacking points. And that's kind of fun to speculate on. And it's going to give T. Frank a lot to think about over the next couple of months.
So I was going to jump into this a little bit later, but let's just get to it right now. So I need to say, Nate, you did an amazing job this offseason of breaking down what to expect from the Penn State defense and what you thought they were going to bring to practice. And you were not wrong. You were just early. Not only did you know that they were going to run multiple fronts, and not only did you just didn't see it in person, but you could see what they were trying to build. You can also make sense of what was going on from the positional conversation of moving LaVar Arrington to defensive end and moving Liam Andrews to defensive end, where you're going to have these hybrids and have the situation where you could see on film things they've done from previous schools, and like, are they going to bring it to Penn State? Well, again, maybe you didn't see it right away, but you did get a chance to see it this weekend. So I just want to say, like, once again, really good job. Anything else you want to add to that, Nate?
Did Kalani Sitake take the job?
Okay, surprise! I'm out.
Bye, Fitz.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Have a great week, everyone.
So, Nate, what do you want to see, or what did you see? Would you pick out from
this is I'm just regurgitating, and it's not. You're not going to like this, T-Frat. Maybe you will. I thought Matt Campbell starting his postgame with that fundamentally they were sound in the weather, including I'm doing this. He didn't say it, but including penalties, right? Like they just there's an officiating crew out there, and certainly I don't know if you saw things that went uncalled, but there was one penalty, right? There was
one time where Cooper Cousins grabbed somebody by the shoulder. I think it was Armstrong Nadeem grabbed him by the shoulder, which resulted in a touchdown that, they didn't call. But yeah, it's only in hindsight the one that I noticed. That doesn't mean it was rampant, right? That there were.
How about pre-snap penalties, right?
Yeah.
There weren't false starts. There weren't just all of the operational stuff, which is what he seemed to be very dialed in on this entire, right? January, February, March, April. That's a good starting block. It's again, it is, and in some senses, it seems like it was maybe a little bit to the frustration of some players and assistants, right? Not like, why are we doing this? But I do think the intentionality of the installs this spring and very like the absolute building blocks, basics of football that they covered ground on and went hard on over and over and over again, is something that can and probably will pay dividends for them. Especially for a team that's just coming from all over the place, right? Just so many different sources of bringing these players together to have a same page starting point is important. And I think that showed on Saturday.
I want to talk to you now quickly. We're going to pivot for just 1 second to what I think is the most exciting thing on my mind. Yes, I enjoyed the blue-white game. There is a certain amount of oh my goodness, my transition. There it is. My transition almost made it, Nate. I want to talk about Boulder Point Lake House, but we have so many videos here. We try to provide so much content from a video perspective that I couldn't find my slideshow here of Boulder Point Lake House. What I'm trying to say is, I need a vacation bad. After the blue-white game, I did something that I've never done. I shouldn't say never. I have not done this year, and I probably only did twice last year. I took a nap, straight up fell asleep in the middle of the day. I do not do that. If you want to get away, you want to unplug, you feel like your brain has been cooked by all the things you're supposed to pay attention to, just fully unplug yourself. Take the Ethernet cord out of the back of your spine and go to the woods in Maine. And if you want to check it out, Boulder Point Lake House. And for our friends that listen on the podcast version, and yes, we have a podcast version, you can check it out wherever you get podcasts. You might want to check out here on the video because we're looking at a brand new constructed architect designed house in rural Maine on an 11 lake chain in the middle of the Maine, from like an hour and a half from the beach. It's owned by a Penn State family, mom, grad, and their son is a junior here at Penn State. So people who are fans of the show and people who are Penn State fans. So people like you. If you need to get away, go check this out. You like fishing? They've got a 280 feet from the lake and a private dock. So if you want to take the family out and you want to go fishing, you want the wife to be able to read a book or just hang out with the kids, campfires, they have the aesthetics, the amenities, and the outdoor spaces to go hiking and to reconnect with the people in your life that you take with you, because that's who you're going to be around for however long. They have plenty of availability. So if you want to get away with gas prices going up and up and up and up, meaning flights are going to be more expensive, and you want to take a road trip into a place that I don't think many of us ever think about going to, Maine is beautiful. And if you want to maybe not now, but book a trip for, going leaf peeping in the fall during the Penn State bye week, you can check out all of those things. And here's another one that he sent me about 3 pages worth of information to go through. Lakeview has a Bortle scale of 2.4. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. It's the darkest skies on the East Coast, meaning if you want to go stargazing, you can bring a telescope and you will see everything. So it's a beautiful area located from a lot of the East Coast. Go check it out. And here's the thing. Go to Boulder Point Lake House on Facebook. Go to their Facebook page, book with them directly, and you can skip some of the upcharges and the fees from Vrbo or from Airbnb or things like that. So make sure that you check them out, and they are dog friendly. So if you want to bring your pets, they can accommodate that as well, so they can get away as well. So support the people, support the channel. We appreciate them here. Nate, I don't have a quick transition because I'm still thinking about
Blake Bortles will show up at the house.
Yeah, apparently the Bortles scale. He has a 2.4 chance of chance of showing
appearing out of thin air.
A random Blake Bortles sighting where he's going to go fishing with you.
Give me more of him. Yeah, let's go.
Let's talk about Koby Howard. I think this is interesting.
Okay.
I know. So this is an area where I think we generally have a similar view, but I maybe I'm a little more positive on the situation. Here's what I saw.
Negative.
So no. I'm saying in the sense of that's a good point. More forward projecting than maybe where you're pumping the brakes a little bit. Because here's the deal. Let's set this up. Koby Howard, because he is the retained player from Penn State and the de facto hero on offense and the victim of James Franklin and Andy Kolnicki's incompetence. Like, I'm just setting the whole thing up. He was just victimized last year. We have talked about him because we've asked about him. The media has asked about him probably every single week that we've had the opportunity to. He has been talked about way too much. Just there's no way that he has to be the number one receiver. He has to have 1,000 yards for the amount of ink and conversation that we've had about him. But at the same time, he was the most targeted player during the 7-on-7. He was one of the most involved receivers during practice, and in the rain, had a drop, had a pass breakup against him, but also had a couple of tough catches against Darius Dixon, one of the team's top corners. So to me, I thought he was good, and he's been one of the biggest risers for me during the spring. But what did you take? I guess what's your view of Koby Howard through the lens? I know I just built up this whole narrative around and the conversation, and I'm ready for you to deconstruct it and destroy it. But what are your thoughts of the Koby Howard situation?
Okay. I think there's two things that are happening at the same time, and they're not conversing with each other, and that's the problem. Do I think that Koby Howard has tremendous potential, upside, all the good things? Does he work really hard? Is he trying to be a good football player with athletic gifts that allow him in the future to be that? Absolutely. Yes. Put me on the train. I'm with you. Mm-hmm. Matt Campbell and his staff want consistency. Everyone hates it, and it's fine. I get it. There is reason to believe last year, and importantly, I don't think it was fair to have expected that. That he wasn't consistent last year, right? That he didn't put all those pieces together right out of the gates that would have allowed him to make the impact that I think some folks were hoping for him or projecting for him.
Yeah.
I mean, just to me, on its face, I think that's a basic tenet. In fact, I think it's a little bit of a disservice to the kid. For him to have to carry some of those expectations. However, and this is where the separate conversation is happening, whether or not he was a better option than some of the guys that they trotted out there.
Yeah.
As that unpolished gem. Sure. Let's have that conversation. I have no issue with that let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah.
So, and I'm going to fold this into something that came up from Z-Man, who says, how about Terry Smith's comments on Penn State not helping Allar develop or play to his strengths? So one of the aspects that I think Terry Smith brought up in that, and I apologize, I haven't heard all of his comments about Drew Allar being drafted to the Steelers. He was talking to a Steelers radio station about Allar and the upside he has. And obviously, he's out there stumping for his guy, for Drew Allar. Two things about this in this situation. We did not see Koby Howard in that original offense. What we saw him in is Terry Smith's offense, which had a very specific role for Koby Howard within it. So we don't have the counterfactual of him being in the other offense and what he was doing wrong that was not allowing him to get onto the field. However, the point Terry Smith made was those three receivers went undrafted. Those were not receivers to the quality to play at the next level, and there were issues with their ability to get open and present good options for the quarterback. Something, Nate, we've said on this channel since it happened. Like, we've been talking about the entire time, but it always falls on the quarterback. So this is not necessarily about the quarterback, but this is about the context of, would Koby Howard have helped that situation? Or were the problems, wink, wink, that the offensive passing game was so predictable and disassociated from the run game, which was the magic formula for Andy Kotelnicki, that it was predictable and defendable by defenses. And they did not have a good situation in general. And the thought that Koby Howard would have fixed that is not fair to the player. And it's not fair to the context of the situation, I think, is my opinion about that. How do you feel about that long rant?
But I don't think that's what Terry was saying, right? I mean, look, there's...
Yeah, I did a bad job of what he said and then just pivoting right into my opinion.
I struggle with some of this stuff because I think that Terry knows more football than, or has forgotten more football than I'll ever, right? I mean, just like, come on, like,
right.
He's been in the game for 30 years and he started his interim tenure saying that he had to catch up on what Penn State was doing offensively because that wasn't his deal.
Yeah.
So I have, like, with all due respect, a little bit of hesitation about a postmortem that doesn't take into account what, and I'm not saying Andy Kotelnicki did a great job. I simply, like, it feels to me the way that this is being framed and how the narrative is being shaped as a postmortem, that at minimum, a documentary needs to happen detailing how Penn State football was able to reach the semifinal of the college football playoff with the dumbest head coach, the dumbest offensive coordinator, and the dumbest quarterback in all of college football. I struggle with that. Like, I really have a hard time.
But we have a hero in the narrative. The hero is Tyler Warren. The answer is just going to be Tyler Warren. It's also not fine. It's not fine. You can't have a tight end be the reason you get to the semifinals. I'm sorry. That is not how football works.
But exactly. It's not how football works.
The lone reason. The only reason. That's what I want to say.
This is why it gets difficult with the conversation, is that there's no room for anyone to acknowledge someone else's opinion that a decision had to be made, right? Choices have to be made. Matt Campbell's talking about it right now. There are carryovers to this. There is a transition to this where, in his answer to you this spring, Matt Campbell, you talked about, like, what's next? And he said, okay, this is the time of year, I'm paraphrasing, this is the time of year where we decide who we're going to be based on what we just saw for the last 15 practices. We saw 15 practices. We know what everybody's skill set is. We have to project in some areas what the injured guys, right? The guys who are coming back from injury, what they're going to be. But at that point, now the next 2 weeks, the next 4 weeks, the next 6 weeks are going to be spent with a heavy emphasis among the coaching staff of, okay, this is how the offense is going to be shaped. These are our strengths. These are our weaknesses. These are our deficiencies. These are the things that we need to hide, right? And that happened last year, and it happened the year prior. The year prior in 2024, they looked at all the pieces. Andy Kotelnicki looked at all the pieces and figured out, hey, I will pound the table for him in this respect because it is getting completely glossed over. Tyler Warren was not Tyler Warren in the summer of 2024.
Yeah.
He was not.
No, we did not come out of camp and we did not come out of the situation thinking that he was going to be the best skill player Penn State had had since Jahan Dotson. That's
okay.
For sure.
So let me shape the offense around that, does that not deserve some level of acknowledgement and credit?
Yes. So, okay, I don't want to spend too much time in the past because I want to keep it on the blue-white game. However, this is my response. You have to have an accurate read of what your talents are. And you have to have an accurate read of what you're working with. And this is what Corrigan has said here perfectly. Franklin said he delegated too much. I agree. Exhibit 1. If you are going to think that your skills are run after catch with Traber Pena and Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross, I disagree with that thought. That you're going to have a 49ers level of catch and run offense when those guys, yes, have some shiftiness, but the way you're going to utilize them is going to put them in positions where they're not strong. Breaking tackles, getting, slipping through a gap and making explosive plays, when what you needed to do was build a passing attack around a draftable quarterback and receivers that have downfield skills. And they had a design in the deep game that was, we're going to set up shots to Devontae Ross. That's it. And then we're going to have a short and intermediate receiver. So Koby Howard, bringing it all the way back around, where does he fit into that offense? What role among those 3 roles that they made where it was very cookie cutter, where does he fit into that? And they pivoted, by the way, during the losing streak. They pivoted. James Franklin, I think, did get involved where he dictated more of like, we're going to go quick game. We're going to do a bunch of these other things to try and put Drew in a position to win, as opposed to what they were doing earlier, which was, hey, let's do Kansas, but with Drew Allar and Traber Pena as our running options. And then trying to pivot, intervening too late, and then it unravels because now you're trying to install or emphasize things that you have not been building as your identity. Where does Koby Howard fit into that? He fits where Kyron Hudson was. Are you pulling your number 1 receiver, the guy that you gave the literal number 1 to? Are you pulling him for a freshman that you don't think has the consistency to run all of those routes? I would have gone with a boom and bust, but that's my opinion on Kyron Hudson. So we'll see how they integrate him into the offense in this situation, which is a vastly different offense from the way it's constructed and the pieces it has that have a full passing game that is not based on and predicated on the threat of the run. I want to ask you about this because you've been writing something over BlueWhiteIllustrated.com that I'm intrigued by, because we're talking about the answers we've gotten, right? What have we solved? What do we know? But you've also been pointing out like what we don't know yet, because their identity and all those things are still being formed. We are still in this metamorphosis where they're in the cocoon before they become the butterfly or the moth at the end. So, what do you think we don't know just yet about this team?
Lots of things. I don't know. I still don't know how good Rocco's going to be. I just think there's a lot of variables there that make it interesting on both ends of the equation, high and potentially low. Look, there's certainly positional stuff that is still to play out. I did think that there was a bunch of clarity or clarification, right? Like Carson Hansen. I think that most of us came into the spring with at least here's the problem. And it's not a problem, but it's true. The guys that Matt Campbell brought with him from Iowa State were brought for a reason. The older guys in particular, right? Trevor Burr, obviously Rocco, obviously Carson Hansen, Sewell, Eskildsen, like those guys came to Penn State not with an assurance that they would be starters or get heavy reps or whatever, but like there's a role for them, a defined role built on trust and built on prior performance. There is a history. There is a book between Matt Campbell and those guys. And so the notion that James Peoples or Quentin Martin was going to outright beat out or relegate Carson Hansen to like the back burner of the offense, I don't think would have been a practical take. Right. I don't think that would have been a practical expectation. They fit into this offense. And talking to some of those guys afterwards, they're running the Iowa State offense. Taylor Mauser's offense is Taylor Mauser's offense. Like that is what they are doing. They was over here, now it's here. And so I think that there are some of those pieces that are now, if they weren't already clear, and I think they probably were for the most part, now they're super clear now, right? Those top two receivers are the top two receivers. It is Sewell, it is Eskildsen that are the top two receivers. There's going to be some battling for that third spot, but I think you're right. I think your notion that Koby is, likely to be the third over Zay Robinson, and Karam Brickens, right? I think that's probably a safe bet. But I also think that there are areas on the defensive line opposite Ike, right? Ikenna.
Yep.
To figure out defensive tackle opposite Williams to figure out. Certainly things at linebacker to figure out in terms of, and you and I chatted about this yesterday.
Yeah, I want to jump in here
because in two linebacker sets. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So before we get to the two linebacker sets, I want to talk through some of the things that we saw this weekend, and I thought maybe the most interesting things to fans. Other than like who stood out, like who played well in the rain. Josiah Zayas had an interception return for a touchdown on just a great blitz time where he jumped a pass, swing pass for a touchdown. He had made a couple of plays in that game. I thought he was playing pretty well. So he's a freshman to note, but not a guy that I think long-term projects into what we're talking about during the season. Some of the guys that I'm more curious about is we talked about this defense and the multiplicity and how they were being very basic with it during the spring. Now, basic means installing the basic parts of the defense, which includes things that we would consider complex, like multiple fronts. We see Liam Andrews playing defensive end, which we had heard about, we talked about, but we hadn't really dug into. We have been monitoring LaVar Arrington and his contributions at defensive end. These two guys play the same position and are wildly different players. I guess the thing that's not clear to me is how they're going to go about incorporating these hybrid fronts with some players that I don't necessarily think fully express those hybrid abilities who are in the top two in the depth chart, like in the two deep. I don't know, is Liam Andrews or is LaVar Arrington in the two deep? Because they have true hybrid abilities, like a 220-pound edge defender. Let's say he's 235 during the season. Let's just say like not magically, but he gets 15 pounds heavier or whatever it is. Like maybe he's not 220 right now. I don't care. But he plays to the size of a big linebacker. Now you've got a guy who can cover, presumably, in certain situations and can rush the passer, but isn't going to be a run-down stuffer. He's not going to be able to set the edge like Ike Eziogu. Then you got Liam Andrews, who's, let's say, 290 pounds now. Does he drop weight? Is he trying to play closer to 280 now? Is he trying to play closer to 275 like Eziogu? Can he rush the passer and still perform the duties of a defensive tackle? Which is where that gray area is for these players. Are they going to be a part of this conversation, or do we just need to focus on Yvonne Kamaju and Max Granville, who's injured, but has been a larger part of the conversation for a longer period of time. And then obviously Alexander McPherson and just the guys that we've been talking about this whole time. Who's actually building themselves a role and who's just being put in a situation where their skill sets in the long term put themselves in a position where they could contribute. And to me, that's where I don't have clarity. I know we know new hybrids, but I don't know that we know if it actually matters to the overall scheme, because we don't know necessarily who they're going to build these packages around. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is there a world where it's opponent specific?
Absolutely. Yes. So yes, that's exactly what they will do, is week to week pull out parts of the defense they want to use, but you have to practice those things in fall camp. You have to be building those things during the summer in order to then practice them and sharpen them during that week and then deploy them. That includes 3 linebacker sets, to transition to your point about who's going to play in the 2 linebacker sets when Tony Rojas is healthy, and who's going to be, and to the point of where they play when you try to get all 3 of them on the field against certain teams that you want to have all 3 of them out there. But you have so many, this is the part that's been so fun but frustrating, is like there are splinters, there are paths they can go down. This is like one of those choose your own adventure books. But you do have to make a choice on each page about what you're going to invest in order to have that be the dominant part of your defense you can actually rely on. And so that is all their opinion and based on the information they've gathered during the spring. And Matt Campbell's even said, what we think we can be good at when Tony Rojas is not there, and we think he could rush the passer and play in space and be this hybrid player that lines up everywhere, but he's got to be healthy for us to actually do these things. So the defense to me has been the biggest mystery.
Yeah, I think your frustration is somewhat misplaced in that, and you're not going to know. It's not like they're going to tell you in July, but by July it will be decided, right? Yeah. There's the law of things that will happen, right? And things that will happen. All of those splinters, all of those options, the possibilities that you're talking about are literally happening right now. Today, Tuesday morning is when it's happening. They're deciding some of those things. They're evaluating what they have on the roster, who they think they're going to have available. Look, Christian Smith last week, and I don't know if we talked about it on the show last week. I don't think we did. Maybe we did. Max Granville, right?
Yeah.
Christian Smith would love to plan to have Max Granville, and they would love to shape certain things in the defense around what his skill set is projected to be.
Yes.
18 months after he last played a meaningful rep in a game.
Yeah.
They would love to do that.
He is everything we just talked about with LaVar Arrington, he can be that guy at 250 pounds. He can be a guy that drops into coverage. He can be a guy that rushes the passer. He's big enough to play the run. He can be all those things, but is he? It's Schrodinger's defensive end.
It's hard. There's complications. It's just I would love for there to be a little more grace in how we evaluate how some of those decisions are made, because they don't happen in a vacuum. Choices have to be made. And sometimes they work,
especially
and sometimes
this
they don't.
year. Yeah, especially this year where you don't have a lot of institutional knowledge. There's a lot of institutional knowledge with Siali Tapake and Keanu Williams with this defense. Yep. That's it. Those are the 2 players that know this defense. And so we got that, and then everything else I think has been kind of up for grabs. The secondary, because the staff globally, Dion Broomfield and some of the other coaches know those players at safety. And Terry Smith knows the corners. There was a push at the beginning of camp to talk about that, because that's what they knew they had from the player level. The front, especially, just exclude the linebackers for a second. The defensive line, they needed to learn and see and interact with them to understand how that's going to work. And that is a massive part of this defense. And it's why we talked about it initially, and then I didn't talk about it for a while because I didn't see a lot of these things, and then finally got to see it this past weekend. And be honest, Nate, huge relief. Although now I've plunged myself into another situation where I need to be making up some ground, and that is we still need to talk about Fragile Brewing Co. The conversation got away from me.
Yeah, no, that's a terrible oversight because
yeah,
they have the best beer in State College. And I want to be clear about this because they're friendly with other breweries in the area. There's great beer in State College in general, right? But for my money and for my opinion, I mean, it is just excellent stuff. East Calder Way, there's plenty of parking. If you have a designated driver, if you don't, take an Uber home, all that stuff. Just make sure you're safe. But while you're down there, you will have a great time. And I know this because not only am I a spokesperson, I am a client of Anti-Fragile Brewing Company. You can see there, they've got kombucha. They have Uncle John's. I had a cheesesteak this weekend. I met some people that are in the comments section on YouTube right now. Like, it's awesome. It is just a great vibe. It is a great product. It is friendly staff, and you're always going to have a good time. So if you get the opportunity to make it that, like, I cannot tell you, T. Frank, and I know I relayed this earlier in the group chat, but I went to the kids clinic. My kid, I got a kid now, right? And well, I've had kids, but I'm just saying, like, he's an actual human now who does things. And so we went to the football. Penn State football held a kids clinic on Friday night. All the players were there. Matt Campbell showed up. In fact, notable, he was there for 2.5 hours shaking hands. This dude's like, got it. He understands people, understands how to do all that stuff. The number of people who said hi to me, which I appreciate and love, but also said, we missed you at Anti-Fragile earlier this afternoon, was like the most rewarding thing in the world because, one, the business that sponsors us and helps us is seeing a return on that. And two, they wanted to see us, which was great. Like, I love that. I think it's so flattering. It's amazing. But I see you, respect you.
I'm a little jealous. There's nothing I could do about it. We had an out of town appointment we had to get to, so I was not able to attend Anti-Fragile on Friday. I really wanted to because that was one of my favorite things that we added this past year was our Friday afternoon hangout with fans at Anti-Fragile, which I'm planning on doing again this fall. So if you go to Anti-Fragile, even if we're not there, make sure you tell them that we sent you. It's an awesome place. We enjoy it, and they're going to have a bunch of cool new stuff coming this year. We'll be telling you about it then. Also, to tell you about this, like the video, subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. As we started the show out saying, like, things are going to get a little bit hectic this year. My least favorite thing is to change the time in which we go live because I know you guys set your day to it and you want to be here live. And some of you, like, you listen to this at a certain point in your day when I get it out after the show. We're going to have just changes this year. There's going to be some adversity and the storm is coming and we're going to try and weather it together. So the best way to do that is to subscribe here to the YouTube channel, like this video, help us out. And of course, the number one thing you do is just like enjoy the video, enjoy the content, and stick with us. Whenever you see the video, watch it and throw back your recliner in your living room and watch the video here on your TV or on your laptop, however you're enjoying it. So appreciate everyone being here. I'm not going to hit the sounder because I'm going to publicly embarrass myself. That's the way I learn. I'm going to make a new Between the Lines intro here now that we've got enough Matt Campbell sound, but we need to make that transition because he spoke afterwards, and I've got like 5 clips. We don't have time for all of them. So, Nate, what did you pull from his comments that you want me to play? Like, what did you think of in terms of was the most interesting? We have players who got better. Well, the storm is coming.
I'm looking at it. Go ahead. Yeah.
What's next for the team? Linebacker room assessment, and then injured players, Rocco Becht getting practice this year.
I think what's next? The storm is coming is that the same quote?
No, it's the follow-up. So let's play that because I think that's that.
The storm is coming. Yeah, yes, I like that one.
So Matt Campbell, to set this up, was asked, where does your team need to get better? Because he talked about getting better in the offseason for every player having their individualized plan for 12 weeks before fall camp. Here's what he said about his team and where they need to get better.
Well, I still think the biggest growth we can make is our discipline and detail, to be honest with you, in everything we do. Can we continue to have great discipline and detail in our academics and how we finish in the classroom? Can we have great discipline and detail and some humility, myself and all of us, in terms of evaluating what we just did? And then I think the end piece of it is probably most important. Like, the storm's coming. We're going to have adversity. Are we as close-knit, tight-knit of a football team that when the tough days come, we can fight through down 14? We can fight through adversity, a bad quarter, a bad half, because all that stuff's coming, right? And the key to our success, are we together enough to be able to fight through hard? And I think those are great growth opportunities for us that we'll just have to continue to pound through as we work through the rest of the summer and certainly fall camp.
So what do you take from that, Nate?
I mean, two things. One, there's a little bit of Disney in there in the best way possible, right? The most realistic way possible, which is these are humans playing this game. And there is direct evidence of a team that actually had shared experiences, had success, that like checked out. I mean, Oregon was so gut punching to that team last season that they really, really struggled to recover. And I think it's fair to say, and you would maybe echo this, some of the 1-year portal edition rentals checked out fastest and checked out completely. And so,
not even the 1-year portal rentals. I would say some of the guys that had been there for a year or two, maybe guys that weren't fully recruited to Penn State, guys that then transferred shortly after the season, who maybe got benched in certain games. Maybe they checked out a little bit sooner than you'd expect and maybe didn't play to their fullest potential, which could have been a top 50 draft pick this past weekend.
But
I don't know if I need to be more specific, but I'm not going to be.
But point being is he's acknowledging, like, they're not going to win every game this year. Maybe they will, but it's unlikely. It's unlikely for most teams in college football every single season to win every game that you play, and for within those games for everything to go right. It just doesn't. That's not how it works. And the opportunity to fracture will be there. And so he leaned in so much on trying to form a foundation that can get through those things, because if you don't, then performance becomes secondary to effort and intentionality
and focus and
focus, all those things. Where you're the better team on paper, and lose anyway because you don't have the same sense of purpose. You don't have the same shared mission and dedication collectively to get there. That happens.
The opportunity to beat a team after you've lost, like to still beat a good team that you can beat because you have maybe some matchup advantages, but you've suffered a setback and you're not doing. It is very hard to be great at something. It requires all of your time and focus and energy. And to give that to something when you don't feel like you're getting the return is a draining process. You do not get the reward initially, and then you feel like, well, what if you start to doubt whether I should be trying this hard at this thing? And that's what he's talking about, trying to fight through those things. And here's the other thing, Nate, and I just want to expand this a little bit, from beyond the winning and losing and the success and the reward and the failure, to there does have to be a close-knitness of the people in the building from top to bottom, because outside of it, nobody's loyal. Nobody is loyal. Yes, there are some fans, and you're going to take offense to this, but like our comment section is not going to be loyal if they lose games that they're not supposed to lose, or if they lose games where they're close. And some people will give a pass, and some people will say, told you. Matt Campbell wasn't the guy to begin with, because everyone loves to be right, and they love to, push off the emotional pain of hope, right? Well, the people in the building don't have that ability. They're the ones actually putting it on the line. So they need to, all this stuff of coming together. Like, it's not just like, you mentioned it as the Disney thing, but like, it does serve a purpose. It does have like, it is it's a psychological thing as well. And like, to the point, like, we have been talking about things that are positive. It is the spring. If we're doing our jobs correctly, people will be mad at us when we point out things that don't go well. And like, we're not on the team. We are here to tell you about the team in the most accurate and honest way that we can. And that does come with some, conflict isn't the right word, but not cheerleading, right? And so like there has to be room for that as well this fall when they don't care if it's fair. Like they want them to focus on the thing that they need to do, which is win the game. Here's another thing I want to clean up from the spring. And that is Rocco Becht and the receivers practicing with the team.
You get, Rocco, I thought huge that he was able to get the reps he had. I probably would have been really nervous had Rocco not been able to get the reps that he got through the spring. Really, I thought by, the last 3 weeks, I think he's really been, quality reps and be able to work with our receivers and even, to have Chase and to be able to have Brett back in some limited form and fashion throughout the spring. I think it was really big for that group. Obviously, Alex and the good news of him being back on campus and certainly kind of trending in a really great direction for the start of fall camp is huge.
I wanted to pluck that out, Nate, because it's something we talked about at the beginning of the spring when we said, like, the quarterback isn't here. And that is a big deal. And had this just gone on and they play, like, I thought it was good that he verbalized the fact that he was a little uncomfortable with the fact that their signal caller and their top receivers were not going to be part of spring football and all of the on-field cohesion to then spread out and to bleed out into the off-field cohesion. And that they did get that done because it could sound like just worrying and kind of like making something up from us as a storyline in the spring, but that was a real thing, like the quarterback not being there, and it is a huge benefit that he was able to not take 11 on 11 during spring football during the blue-white game, but go through the 7 on 7, go through some of the things where he has to get used to his receivers and get the timing down with the new offense and get them used to hearing his cadence and whatnot. So to me, like that was an important button on the narrative of spring football that it's easy to just forget these things when the positive outcome happens. And then you just blow by all the things that could have gone wrong if that didn't happen.
Somebody earlier in the chat brought up Alex Mansky, and this is like obviously no fault of his. There are spring practices where, regardless of what his situation is, I mean, he was at home, like physically at home, where he grew up. So you're physically removed, and they zoomed him in and all that stuff. But that's detrimental. That hurts his development. That's a roadblock to his development. How this offseason has gone for him. But there are other players beyond that, and I think what Matt Campbell is alluding to is there are situations, right? He talked about, I think at the beginning of February, it was, where the outlook for Rocco was more along the lines of he'll be at practice taking mental reps.
Yep.
The fact that he was able to do more than that is extraordinarily important. Is it the end all be all, right? You can work with all of these things. You can deal with all of these things, but this is a better outcome than some of the alternatives. And so for Rocco Becht, for Chase Sowell, for Eskildsen to be available even in a limited capacity, as opposed to spending their time completely on the sidelines, completely walled off from literally walking through these things, is a huge difference and a huge win for Penn State football this offseason.
So we got two more I do want to get to. I'm going to hold you a little longer because you got to start a little later because some of these things are important.
Yeah.
Let's get to the linebacker room because I find this one to be interesting. He He gave us an update on some of the injured players, and I thought the Alex Tatsch one was surprising.
Yeah, we just talked about Alex, honestly, yesterday. I think Alex is certainly a little bit ahead of schedule in terms of where we thought he would be, but you got to remember, even by the time we get to fall camp, I think he'll still be limited just because of when that injury occurred. Our hope is, I think if he continues to progress, he'll be ready for the early start of the season, whether that's game 1 or game 2, but I think he's certainly on track where he needs to be. So, when you talk about him, Tony has done an unbelievable job. I don't know if I could be prouder of what his work has looked like and what he's done behind the scenes in terms of both his rehab and his leadership in our football program. And so I think the great gift is the rest of those guys got great reps. It's totally different defense for some of the Iowa State players, obviously, when you talk about Brazina and you talk about Kooper Ebel and you talk about Caleb Bacon. You're coming from a 3-down front to a 4-down front. But I think what's been fun to watch that group really grow.
So I kind of glossed over it a little bit earlier because I knew we were going to be talking about it here. The linebacker room, what do you make of it? First off, what do you make of the Tatsch timeline he's laying out there? That's better than I expected, and it still feels early for him to – it feels both early but late for him to contribute this season, at least for I'd say the meat of the season. Do you agree with that? And I guess how do you view that timeline for him returning?
Look, if he's available at all, I mean, the injury happened in December, right? Mid-ish December, I think. Give him 10 months and he could play, right? It's always a sliding scale with knees, right? Is just where, like, how does it go? How does the rehab go? It sounds from Campbell that it's going well and that he's on a good timeline to, whereas most of the baseline that's been set for all of the other guys that are coming off of injuries last season or have rehabbed this off season, that they'll all be almost universally ready to go for preseason camp at the end of July or the beginning of August, whatever date they set. It's going to be different for Tatsch. And so even if they're working him up into practices at the end of camp and then into practices where he's not cleared for games in September, but then they could use him maybe in some limited capacity in October and November. Look, I think
he's going to be a great late season reinforcement because it's not that he's cleared to play. Is he ready to play from kind of is he getting back into the swing of things? Has he actually practiced in the defense, let alone, the mental reps are one thing, but like actually getting into playing the defense, I think is another thing. So having that ramp up time, if he's ready to go game 1 or game 2, a month to get like his own fall camp would be the next 4 weeks. So now we're talking week 7, 8, and then from there, talking about this linebacker room in general, who plays where and when, I think is another interesting thing. And you were getting into it before I cut you off. So how do you view the linebacker room, with essentially what looks like 3 starters for 2 positions primarily, like in a 4-2?
You tell me, man. Don't ask me. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to decide that. But I guess if the larger point is Caleb Bacon, Kooper Ebel, and Tony Rojas all would, should start.
Yeah.
And this becomes, and I don't think there's any mystery to this, right? There's going to be lots of 4-2-5, right? Like lots of 2 linebacker on the field. Oh, okay. How does that work? Who are 2 of those guys splitting one position? Do you have designed role like series? I'm interested to know from a base perspective, right? The guys that you see the most on the field, how they're making that decision and who really you can, because I guess this is kind of how it works, is who can you afford to not have on the field and who can't you afford to not have on the field.
Here's the thing that I'm playing with in my head. So talked about this over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Great reminder to subscribe here for just $1. Try us out for 5 days. You missed our deal where you got it for half off, but we still have a deal to get you in the door so you can try it out. One of the things I noticed, wrote about this afterwards, is that they had Caleb Bacon at Mike linebacker and Kooper Ebel at will. So is it a 3-man weave? Is Bacon going to play Mike as well? Are you going to, because to me, it has been Kooper Ebel's the Mike linebacker. See, he was the Mike linebacker at Iowa State. New defense, but he had the responsibility of taking on blocks, calling the defense, right? Those things. He's not a natural will in that I think he's the least athletic of the three, but could you have those two on the field and then like Tony comes on the field as a Will or a Sam? Would he play? Like, could you have those three guys and just mix and match whenever you want? And it really is blurring the lines of what is a starter and what is like, what that means in a defense. Or is there going to be just contingencies, right? And so like it is a very rigid thing of it is Kooper Ebel and then it is Caleb Bacon and Tony Rojas based on rotating each week, situation, formation, because Bacon is more of a linebacker line player and Rojas is more of a linebacker coverage player. So they, even in that situation, have different skill sets that cover what you would want out of the will linebacker. And this is, again, where I go back to, like, there are so many paths to go down. There are so many choices they can make and that they are making, because one of the things they were investing in this spring is playing 3 defensive tackles and having a 5-man front, which you then are taking a linebacker off the field to do that. So who, and when, and where about linebacker, it is also influenced by the defensive line and the safety room with playing 3 safeties, which they did this past weekend. And I will say, like, one of the reasons we saw a lot of that is because we saw 7-on-7. They're not going to be running, so of course they're going to play more safeties than you are going to see, or more nickel defenders than you're going to see more linebackers on the field. So, kind of a blue-white observation that has a caveat.
I'm gonna read a quote from Kooper Ebel afterward, because I asked him. All the Iowa State guys offensively were saying like, "Oh, this is the same offense." The defensive guys, it's not. It's very different for the Iowa State guys. So I'm gonna shade this for you in real time, and you can decipher what it means, if it means anything to you. Quote. It's been a big difference, I would say, at linebacker. I can speak at linebacker the most, obviously. We definitely have had to unlearn maybe some old habits. Not necessarily bad habits, but old habits. Just being off the ball at 5 yards now instead of 2 or 3 at times. Having an extra D lineman in front of you. You kind of are able to flow more. You kind of, in this money quote, you kind of feel like a true linebacker. Sometimes in the old defense, you felt like you're just kind of plugging holes. But it's been awesome. We've really enjoyed it, and we look forward to continue growing in it.
Yeah, so the old defense was built on surprise. Like, surprise, there's a linebacker where you didn't expect it. Surprise, the defensive line. It's a 3-man defensive line, but they could go any direction. So, like, they're not traditionally sized, beefy, big defensive tackles that are going to hold the point of attack in an odd front. They were trying to blur the line between what is a 3-man line and what is a 4-man line on every single play. And the linebackers would insert into that as essentially tackles to plug a hole instead of being able to read the play, see where the guards are, see where your secondary key of the running back is, and then go flow to where the ball is going. They would just ram their head into the offensive line so the safeties could chase things down. There are some overlaps between what Jim Knowles was trying to do and what that defense was in terms of how the linebackers would interact, how the defenses would adapt on every play. Now they've got massive defensive tackles in front of them, and they have to actually play linebacker, use their intelligence and their instincts to know where the ball is going, flow with the offense to the point of attack, defeat a block there, and make a tackle. So you are farther back in reading as opposed to you're just like hyping yourself up to be a battering ram like it's special teams. And it is part of their size profile, by the way, where these guys are 235, 240. And so they were blurring that line, right? Now they get to play linebacker, and the gamble is they're going to have a slobber knocker of a run defense if all of those things translate, right? So they're not taking on guards now, so they are going to hit full force when they get a chance to run to the point. The question is going to be, are they athletic enough to run to the point and be the first one there and arrive in a position to make a tackle and not be juked missing tackles, right? So that's, I think, the last thing there.
I'm sorry, but you and again, it's not doubt, it's asking the question. Do we know if they're good at that? Like, do we know how developed those instincts are when they haven't had to use them at Iowa State?
I think they're good. I do think so. Here's the thing. They are emphasizing one aspect of the defense that was not always what they were doing. You know, having gone back and watched it, I was expecting to see him basically lined up over a guard and like have boxing gloves on. There were times, the majority of the time, he was flowing to a point. But I think it was the kind of the Manny Diaz style where everyone's got a gap. And so you just got to go to your gap, as opposed to now, like, they're going to read and have, got to know what gap you're supposed to be in. There's going to be decisions you have to make
quickly.
And yes, instead of like your job is tailor made for you. So you are going to, and you have pass game responsibilities that are on top of that. So you're going to play full linebacker. And I do have some hesitation about the overall application of the linebacker position holistically. I am more confident that they're going to be able to read. They're smart guys and they're physical. Yeah. So I do think they're going to be able to, they have the athleticism to play within the box. It's the rest of it where Tony and Tatsch and Cam Smith have those skills of coverage linebackers. And so they've got to find the right mix of guys on the field to bring the size and the thumpers along with the athleticism to cover. Because even we saw in the 7-on-7, I thought Kooper struggled a little bit in coverage. So that's going to be something to watch this year. Now I've taken too much of your time.
I got all the time in the world. Let's go.
All over. Well, I do want to end the show now. Because I got to save some points for tomorrow. Like we got to do an hour of conversation with Greg. We'll talk a little bit about the draft tomorrow as well, kind of recap some of that stuff. But there's still so much from Blue White Weekend we have to talk about on tomorrow's show, and of course on the recruiting show Thursday. So Nate, thank you for your time today. This was fun. I am so thoroughly stimulated. Like my brain is buzzing after this. I love having good conversation about football. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to all the people in the chat who participate, and thanks to all the people that say hi. That's it.
Yeah. If you're on your way out, drop a like in the collection plate, hype the video, help us keep this going because like we said, we're at a new time slot from where we were the last month, but we're back to our old time slot. So just make sure you like the video and subscribe here so you don't miss any of the stuff we have this summer, because we're going to be diving into some big picture things next week on this show of like big picture spring, who got better, some of the stock report things that I think fans are interested in. Do a little bit of that tomorrow as well here on the show. So for Nate Bauer, I'm Thomas Frank Carr. We'll be back on the BWI Live show. Talk to you then.